Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas. And today I have with me Victoria Reynolds, and she is a spiritual luminary, and she has a station called Fearless and Free TV. And I think that's one of the most important things that people need to do today is to become fearless and free, because the two can go together. Welcome, Victoria.
Hi,
So,
Gail. So good to see you again.
so happy to have you on again. Yes. And I just find it absolutely delightful, the idea or the concept of fearless and free, because that is what we need more than anything right now.
Absolutely. So this idea came to me years ago. It is what it really is becoming fearless and freeing ourselves from the present fear-based reality. So we've been living in what has been really a fear-based construct for thousands of years.
They even emit frequencies that are low vibration to
Mhm.
keep us in fear and keep us down. And um, that's a big issue. So
Well, the
I
great thing is that we can start to rise above it, though. Once we start to recognize the role that fear has played in our lives, we can free ourselves from it. That's really what the concept of fearless and free is there's no word in our language currently for being fear, void of fear. So
mhm.
what we're working on is becoming more and more fearless, less and less fear until we get to the point where fear no longer exists. So I see people who want to just jump from being in complete fear to being completely free, and it's really a process of peeling off the layers of fear
Mhm.
to
There, don't we have more layers of fear than we even realize? I mean, the fear permeates our very existence in things that you don't even think are that is a fear is actually a fear. Does that make sense?
absolutely, yeah. So when I had my awakening, it started in 2008 after the economic crash. As we know, usually our awakening experiences involve something that brings us to our knees and then starts to wake us up.
Funny
I
how that works, isn't
woke
it?
up in 2020. But yeah, I started to realize this fearless. I'm like, I'm not afraid of anything. I left home when I was a teenager. I've always been on my own. I start my own businesses. I got it. I don't have any fear. And then I started to realize that the big overarching fears weren't there anymore, but it's those sneaky little subtle ones that we don't even know are there that are the real issue. I call them fear-based beliefs because it takes a lot of work to recognize them.
Let's talk about them. If you can identify some of them for the listening audience, I think that would be really helpful.
Well, pretty much everything we believe is fear-based. That's what's fascinating. It's built into all of our belief systems. It's built into our educational systems. It's built into our political systems. It is built into everything. I call it fear disguised as love. That's why it's so difficult to recognize.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Really
Uh,
difficult to find it. So here's
yes.
the most common example of it right now that everybody watching could really understand is the current narrative of if you really care about humanity, you will take the poke in the arm, right?
Oh, yes.
That's fear disguised as love. So at the surface, it actually sounds very loving, which is reason why so many people have run out to get it. And it's like, well, you don't really love your family if you don't get it. So it feels like it looks like love at the surface,
hmm
but underneath it, it's actually fear.
Yes, definitely. Wow, that's so true. That's a good one, and that's a very recent one that hits home right now.
Yeah, and that's why I brought that one up because it is so present right now,
Mhm.
and to show the audience how easily fear can disguise itself as love.
Well, we have another, and we could go into religion versus spirituality because there's a lot of fear in all the religions that have been um, You know, I remember as a child, it never made any sense to me. How can you have a loving God that if you do something wrong, you're going to burn in hell forever? You know, that's the kinds of
Right.
things that they would say. Burn forever? Oh my God, what kind of God would do that? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's where I talk about fear disguised as love. Religion is the most obvious place that we'll find it. So there's all these beliefs that are taught you God loves you with a this is the one that always cracked me up. He's an unconditionally loving God with a big long list of conditions.
Yes. That's absolutely right. That's so true. Yes.
And they're
Uh,
all fear-based, every single one of them.
how do you what do you suggest to people so that they start to recognize their own fears that they may not even realize are fears that they're carrying around? Is there anything in
Well, we have
particular that you can
yeah,
go ahead?
we have really two primary energies playing out on the planet right now, love and fear. And fear is I used to think that fear was the opposite of love. What I'm really starting to understand is that fear is the very lowest vibration of love. So we're moving up this spiritual spiral. We've been living in this fear-based 3D matrix for thousands of years. And once we wake up to that and we start recognizing this reality we've been living, we start moving up this spiritual spiral, which is the 4D, which a lot of people aren't talking about. That's really what 4D is about. People want to go from 3D to 5D and don't understand that you don't get to bypass. You can't spiritually bypass the
You
4D.
can't skip any levels there.
That's like the caterpillar trying to become a butterfly without the cocoon. So all this stuff is taking place within the cocoon, within this 4D reality.
Mhm.
So this is where we get to process our lives, process our beliefs, do our karma resolutions. It's really where the magic takes place. Once people recognize that the shadow processing part of it's not so fun, but once you start to recognize how to do it, it actually can become quite exciting because you start to recognize and oh, I know what that is and I know what to do with it. Because you start having the tools to know how to do your shadow processing. So when we're talking about fear-based beliefs, that's also in correlation to our own inner shadows. We all have them. We all have the darkness within us to process. We all have fear-based beliefs to process in order for us to arrive at heaven on earth within ourselves. So heaven and hell are both right here inside of us. And the way that we get to heaven within ourselves is to process all of our beliefs and transmute our perceptions of our experiences. So one really obvious fear-based belief is anything that causes us to feel guilt, shame, blame, resentment, againstness, anger, hatred. All of those are based in fear. So if we have a belief that causes us to feel any kind of againstness toward our self-judgment is also fear-based. And when we sit with our beliefs and ask, how does this feel with me? Is this love? Is this love? Or is this something other than love? So our truth, that divine, that connection that we have to the divine is always loving 100% of the time. Every time I communicate with source, I communicate with the angels, I communicate with the guardians, they're always loving. There is no hatred coming out of any of that. That's all part of the fear-based construct that we need to get to and actually recognize and stop feeding it within ourselves. So take a look at our beliefs. Is this belief really loving? If it's not loving, then it's a deception that needs to be worked on. If it's not loving, it's a fear-based belief that needs to be processed. And if it's causing you to feel anything that's not loving, then it's fear-based. So the first place it starts is with ourselves. A lot of us have a lot of unloving beliefs about ourselves that were either placed on us when we were children by people who thought they were well-meaning, our parents, our religions, our teachers. They may have thought they were very well-meaning. I know my parents raised me with a lot of fear-based beliefs, not because they intended to. They really thought they were doing the right thing.
Mhm. Yeah, my parents as well. I think that's very common, and that's why people are dealing with as much fear as they are, because even our parents were programmed and um, were made to live in fear, and it's passed on to the children. It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
kind of hard to avoid it until it's recognized, and that's our mission now, is to recognize our own
Right.
um, dark shadows, our own fears that are holding us back, right?
Right. Right.
So
And so I call those hand-me-down beliefs. So what's happening with a lot of
that's
us is
what
that
they
we're
are.
outgrowing our hand-me-downs. They just don't fit us anymore. They're all worn out. And so we're just realizing we just don't need those hand-me-downs anymore. And we're in a really extraordinary place in our human experience where we have the tools and the resources to be able to lift ourselves up out of that. Where previous generations didn't necessarily have the tools and resources, they just regurgitated the beliefs, their hand-me-down beliefs. This time, this amazing, extraordinary moment in time, we don't have to carry that stuff forward. We can undo all of it and literally clear ourselves of it, so the rest of our human experience gets to be peace and heaven on earth, and it all starts inside of ourselves.
So how explain what you mean by how's it different now than it was when our parents were getting, you know, growing up? What
Well,
in particular are you referring to?
well, they were drenched entirely in their dogmas. There was a time when religion ruled the world. You weren't even allowed to think outside of religion.
Hmm. Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, how many millions of people died across Europe because they didn't happen to succumb to the particular religion that was moving
Right.
across Europe?
Right. And how many witches were burned because yeah.
Precisely because they
Yeah.
didn't, because they had an opinion of their own, because
Mm.
they wanted to teach their kids how to make tea, for Pete's sake. I mean,
Yeah. Or herbal medicine.
that's what I mean by making tea. It's like
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
caught
Well,
making a pot of tea, you were a witch. So before now, people were terrified to even think outside of their boxes. So people got stuck in their boxes, right? Well, now the boxes are breaking down, and there are a million different labels now, and we're all allowed to think outside the box for the most part. And creating into the reason we have so many different labels now is because we're getting to a point where there won't be any labels, and human beings will simply accept each other as divine beings having a human experience. Right now, we're going through the unpacking of our boxes. So, the tools that we have access to now that the ancestors didn't have access to are spiritual psychology, energy healing, all that stuff. They didn't have access to any of that. It was just you believed what your parents believed or else.
that's pretty, yeah. Are you an outcast?
Or you're an outcast. I am proudly the black sheep of my family, or rather I'm the
Me too.
I'm not
It's
I'm not
funny.
a sheep. I'm more of a, I don't know, maybe I'm the sheep dog or something. I'm not even one of the sheep. I'm so outside of that box.
Yeah.
And
That
and so finally, like, we're now at a place where there's enough light flooding the planet, enough love flooding the planet, that we're able to see our fear-based constructs and no longer have to follow them.
mhm. Since everybody's at so many different levels of evolvement in terms of what they see and, their perceptions as a result of their belief systems, what what do you think we can do to help people recognize that and be able to move forward when there's so many different levels? Like, how do you? That seems problematic, is what I'm getting at. Um,
And not
how do
necessarily.
we all come together when we have all different levels of being of noise of awareness? Let me put it that way. Do
Well, I think the really important thing for people to understand is that every single one of us has our own unique path, and we all are here in our unique soul's journey. So we need to come together. We've got to bridge this crazy divide that's been created to keep us divided and
yes,
conquered.
that's
And
what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at. Thank you. That's, it's
yeah,
it's a serious problem.
it is a serious problem. And it's been done intentionally because those who are attempting to keep us controlled know that if both sides of the divide, it's not even both sides, it's like this group against this group, this group against this group, this group against this group, as long as they can keep us divided, it keeps us conquered. They know that when, not if, when we unify, we will be a force to reckon with. They know they can't control us, unify. So we have to get past the labels. We have to be willing to get past the labels, other people's labels, and accept the truth that we are all divine beings having human experience. We all want exactly the same thing. Ultimately, we all want exactly the same thing. We want security for our families. We want freedom from indebtedness. We want to feel safe in our environments. We all want the same thing. It's simply a matter of how we approach it. So let's have these conversations where it's like, okay, I see that you see things this way. This is how I see things. Have a willingness to not think that our way is the only way. The only being that really has ever said, my way is the only way, is Satan. Jesus did not say that. That's something the dark side would say. My way or else is what the dark uses.
My way or the highway, as they say.
Right? Yeshua did not say that. Yeah. That was created by the people that took his teachings and manipulated them to make it one way is the only way. There are nearly 8 billion people on the planet, and every single one of us have our own path. We have to stop thinking our way is the only way. We have to start opening up our perception to recognize every person on this planet sees everything through their own perception, through their own experiences, through their own eyes. No two people ever see everything the same way. And what we can learn from each other by opening up and having these conversations and saying, great, let's use some of that and 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 come up with something that works for everyone.
It's a potpourri of ideas and concepts that if we would all come together and with respect and kindness,
yes.
And compassion for other people and their beliefs and their perceptions or what have you, it would be amazing.
It would be. That's actually what will drive our evolution. So the ability to sit and have conversations we disagree with people on and just listen, and then come together on the areas that we do agree. Rather than arguing about what we don't agree about, let's come together with the things that we do agree about and use those for moving forward. We need to have these conversations, because if we're not willing to have these conversations, we're going to go into a stalemate. We're not going to move forward. The only people that are going to win are the people that are trying to keep us divided and conquered. So if we're going to take back our sovereignty, which is freedom is.
We were born in freedom.
We were born to be free. Human beings were not meant to be corralled. Well, no being is meant to be corralled, but freedom is so driven into our nature that we will fight to the death for our freedom. So we need to remember that this is something that's in our very core. We came in with the number one agreement on our planet. What I call the prime directive on our planet is freedom of choice. And it's the primary law on our planet. And people don't understand that by just giving our choices away to someone else, we are giving our power away to someone else. And we need to stop thinking of ourselves as being a victim to everything else, because that part of that victim story is continued to be propagated. And the reason it's propagated is because if we continue to hold ourselves as victims, it gives other people control over us. So I refuse to play victim. This is my life. I am making my choices. I am not a victim to my circumstances. Yes, I have had very painful circumstances in my life, and I choose to have power over them.
I agree. I've had some pretty difficult circumstances in my life along the way as well. And it somehow, in many ways, it helps you. The difficult times actually help you.
They make you
And
stronger, more
yes,
resilient, more
they don't
grateful
feel
from them.
it doesn't feel that way at the time. um, but as you get through it and as you look back, it has made you stronger and also broadens your horizons in such a way that you have a new level of understanding that you didn't have before.
That's right.
And that's the lack of understanding and compassion for others has been a big problem for us.
Well, and that's
Um,
actually really been driven by social media. Just the last, 4 or 5 years. This is what I find really interesting. So right around 2012, we were all starting to unify, right? We were getting
mhm.
together, we were unifying, we were beginning to create heaven on earth. The light workers were waking up, and it was getting really good. And then the dark side panicked and said, "Oh no, no, they're getting together. We got to figure out how to keep them divided."
Yes.
And then all these new narratives came up. Like the whole cancel culture, the whole algorithms only letting people see what the algorithms determine you want to see, so people aren't actually seeing the other side. Where we stopped having conversations,
So-called fact checkers.
and the so-called fact checkers, we stopped having conversations, and those conversations are really, really, really important for our collective progress. It's interesting. I'm seeing the visual right now of America's founding fathers, right?
Mhm.
These were men from all different states. Some of them were wealthy, some of them were not. And they all sat down together and said, okay, how can we come up with a solution that works for all of us? The rich people didn't just kick the poor people out. The people from Virginia didn't say, we're not talking to the people in New York. They all came together and said, how can we create a more perfect union? That's where we need to be. How can we create a more perfect union? Not just here in the United States, but across the entire planet.
Right.
Because that's what we're doing. We come together and create something really, really amazing when we take the time to look at each other's perspectives and really understand each other. Here's a little thing I want to share with you about the word understanding. So I'm teaching my transcendence class a couple of weeks ago, and one of the chapters in my book is practice understanding. One of my students says, well, we're being suggested not to use the word understanding because it means to stand under.
Under.
But here's what I did, because I am a total word nerd. I admit it. I love etymology of words, and I will get a word and I will go into the history of the word. What I discovered about the word understanding is that it doesn't mean to stand under. The original word was understanding. It's UNTER standing. We just softened it to a D.
Okay.
Understanding means interstanding, standing between and looking at both perspectives. That's actually what the root
That's the
word.
true meaning. I think what happened is they bastardized the meaning of it in the court system. Because if you say you understand in the court system, that means they take it as you're standing under and you're contracting with them. But that's
Our words got manipulated. Our
yes,
symbols got taken and manipulated, and our words got taken and manipulated.
right.
Here's another perfect example for people to think about. It's funny. I hear somebody say awesome when I was just going to get to that word. A perfect example of how our words have been manipulated is the word awful. When did it become a bad thing to be full of awe?
Just like somebody said the other day to me,
Right?
well,
But being awesome is good, but being awful is bad. You see that there's a manipulation that's happened to our words.
oh, very much so. Good morning. Do you want to be morning?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, some of the wordplay, I mean, is unbelievable, really.
Well, the one that cracks me up is good grief. I'm like, seriously? When has grief
Agree
ever been
to it.
good?
I know, I know. It's like all these little sayings and cliches or whatever you want to call them. And when you really sit down and think about them and analyze them, you're going, "Oh my God, what am I saying?"
Well, maybe it's time for us to take back our words.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then they could talk about words being, spelling.
Right.
casting spells with words.
Well, and that's
Um,
exactly why our words were manipulated to
yeah.
use them to cast spells with them. Yeah. And we can do that too, just by being impeccable with the words that we choose to use.
Yes. Well, actually, start using them with forethought, so that you're really thinking about what you're saying, which never hurts anyway.
Right.
Sometimes when you blurt things out, you put your foot in your mouth anyway. Um, but our whole language has been used against us, and it's manipulated and used against us in different um, areas as well. There used to be a time when, for just as an example, the Catholic Church would only talk in Latin, so you never knew what they were saying, and most people wouldn't anyway. And even medical terminology, when they want to fool you, all they have to do is use a lot of their medical jargon, and it works in the legal realm as well.
Mhm.
So our words have been really manipulated in so many different ways to be used against us. That's so true.
Mhm. So with medical words, they're all based in Greek. I studied medicine, so I know
Oh, okay. I thought they
made.
were based in Latin.
I'm pretty sure they're Greek.
Greek. Well, it
Yeah.
might be a combination for that matter
Well,
too.
the languages are so similar.
Yeah.
But so I like etymology again. I say I like the etymology of words. Ology actually means study of. So you can look at any medical term, and if it ends with ology, you know that it means the study. Psychology is the study of the psyche. It's actually pretty easy when you understand the root words.
Uh-huh. There was something else I wanted to bring up. You had mentioned that, well, you call the Elohim of freedom. Would
Hmm.
you explain that? What do you mean by that?
Okay,
Elohim of freedom.
that is who I am in the angelic realm. So I chose to embody in human form because I needed to have boots on the ground. I do embody here once in a while when the planet needs me.
Hmm.
So I chose to embody. I'm not the only one. There are other Elohim here. There are lots of angels here who have
Hmm.
chosen to embody in human form so that we could have boots on the ground, feet on the ground. So I am one of the Elohim. Um, my twin flame is Arcturus. He's not here yet. Apparently, he's going to be here sometime next year. I'm looking forward to meeting him in physical form. And the Elohim are
Is
creators.
he in Sedona?
No,
That okay? That's a different one.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
I know. And why he might be, but he doesn't use the name Arcturus. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't met him yet. We'll see.
Okay. There is an Arcturus here in Sedona.
Oh, I may have to come to Sedona and meet him and see if he is.
If he's the one.
Might be.
Interesting.
I've
Interesting.
been
Very
told I wasn't
interesting.
going to meet him until 2023, but then psychics can be off.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah,
What do you?
so
y-
we are creators of worlds. So it is a one of the hierarchy of angels that were created by source for specifically for the purpose of assisting God to create worlds. So there's some misinterpretation about what the Elohim are. Some people think that they're the I've actually heard people teaching this that they're the gods that came in and manipulated the human DNA. That is not the Elohim. They don't do that. We don't do that. We actually create worlds. They are engineers. Actually, some of the Elohim engineers are here recreating the planet, recoding the planet. They're I call them decorators, but they're the ones that came up with the idea for the trees and the plants and the animals, right?
Mhm.
They're creators of worlds. That is what they do. So and some of us are protectors. So my role as Victoria Elohim of Freedom is to protect freedom. So I've been
Oh,
on
that's
the
awesome.
planet whenever freedom is being
Mhm.
jeopardized, and I come in and I have an incarnation and I assist with the freedom of humanity. My most recent incarnation was during the Holocaust, and I was a Jewish sympathizer, and I was helping to rescue Jews. One of my incarnations was as Moses' brother Aaron, assisting to
Wow.
liberate the Jews then. So
Mhm.
uh, my soul is one of the oldest souls in the universe. One of the first uh,
Created.
created by Source in order to help Source then expand the universe.
Mhm. Okay. There are a few others who have said the same, and I imagine that's necessary with what the planet is going through at this time. And
There are
freedom.
skills that are embodied here. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm. Why is it that some people remember their past incarnations and um, and some don't? Like you have recall of your past lives and when you were here and so on, and some of us don't.
So
And
I didn't at first. I didn't know that I did. This matrix that humanity's been living under, we basically, when we come into this human form, we get amnesia.
Mhm.
We don't remember anything from before. Some people can't even remember back to their birth. Some people remember all the way back to conception, but for a lot of people, they don't have any memories any earlier than maybe 3 or 4 years old.
Mhm.
And
I'm like that.
like
I don't.
like we pop down into this field of amnesia. Then once we pop back up out of the 3D matrix, sometimes our memories start coming back, or we'll start to meet other people who know how to read Akashic records that can then see on our behalf what our previous lifetimes were. When I was a little girl, I would have this nightmare all the time about being shot. And I'd never even seen a machine gun, but I had this dream that I was this woman. I had a long yellow dress and I was running, and there were men with machine guns shooting me. And then I would fall over and die. And then I would wake up.
Wow.
Yeah. And what I discovered later was that was my most recent death experience. That's why I still remembered it so well. It is
Uh-huh.
like implanted in the what I call the cellular memory. Some of my lifetimes I didn't remember, other people remembered for me. And then I had a whole another past lifetime memory experience. One day I was in my son's bedroom downstairs, and this whole past lifetime death experience. I think we remember the death experiences because they are so traumatic. They literally, like, they put an imprint in our.
Yeah, yeah. I know I've been burned at the stake.
Yeah, and that
My
like
goodness.
that particular death experience I remembered, and I was actually tied up on a pole in the center of this town, and I had my throat slit, and I remember that because they had said they were using me as an example of what happens when you go against the Catholic Church, and they had gone on a witch hunt and killed the other 300 people that were in this secret. We'd started a secret society that was a spiritual group, and
Mhm.
every single one of us got hunted down and killed. And they made an example with me.
They made it so difficult to escape this matrix because whenever somebody got close to knowing things they didn't want people to know or doing things they didn't want people to do, they frequently ended up dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that increased the fear in people substantially.
Right.
And that is managed to control people for fear of being killed, for fear of being locked up, any number of those things. That's a pretty serious fear. I mean, who wants to be, locked up or dead as a result of something? So that's why we have right now, we have so much compliance. We've given away our health freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
And
here, absolutely.
it's absolutely out of fear, yeah, and that fear of something with a 99% cure rate, but we won't go into all that.
And the fear isn't even legitimate. We know that the numbers don't prove it, but they've done such a good job of keeping people in fear. For starters, people are afraid anyway. All they had to do was come up with one new narrative, and everybody goes back into the default of fear because it's been so prevalent on our planet for so long. The natural default for human beings right now is fear, where we're all born in love. So we are love, having a human experience, but we learn fear, and then it gets pushed on us every single day from all over the place. So Every choice we make until we learn how to make conscious choices are fear-based choices.
Wow, that's so true. You don't want to be the victim, but at the same time, it's very difficult, I think, for most people to recognize all of this and come to terms with it when every time you turn around, there's some other fear-based uh, concept or idea or whatever, and it's like we're bathed in it constantly. Um,
Yeah.
and we're programmed by it as well because they have patents on technology and the TV and that programs our minds and keeps us in the fear. Wh- What what helps to people to break away from it more than anything? Is there anything in particular that you have found that is the most helpful for people to start recognizing their fears and start re- rejecting them or transmuting them or whatever you want to call it?
It's really taking the time to sit and question your own beliefs. So every time a thought comes into our head, asking ourselves, is this fear-based or is it loving? When you make a decision, am I making this decision from fear or am I making this decision from love? How does this feel to my body? Does this make me feel tense and uptight, or do I feel relaxed in it? If it feels tense and uptight, it's probably fear-based. If it feels relaxed and loving, then it's love-based. Another really good place to look for is if there's an attachment to it. Attachments are generally fear-based. So if there is it's funny, I'm just using the if there's a condition attached to it, if you don't do this, then these are going to be the results. So that if is generally fear-based.
Hmm.
Shoulds are usually fear-based. You should do this or else. Shoulds tend to be fear-based. Shame is fear-based. Guilt is interesting because guilt is fear-based, but what it can do if you feel guilty for something, it's because there's something inside of you that's asking for your attention so that you no longer feel guilty for it. So guilt will say, oh my gosh, I feel so guilty for doing that. Okay, well then what is the lesson I need to learn from that experience so that you don't feel the guilt anymore? But what
Mhm.
happens with people is they go into guilt and then they wallow in it, and then it becomes shame and self-judgment and resentment and all kinds of things.
Those are very low vibrational.
Very much so. So it can be, guilt can just be a quick little, oh, this needs my attention. And then get into the attention of what it is that this experience, what it is that you need to learn in this experience to pull you out of guilt. But people can wallow in it. You can get at the point where you can have one negative experience, and then if you wallow in it, it will suck you down to the bottomless pit of despair. And then it's a lot harder to get up out of that.
Hmm.
So,
So recognizing those things as quickly as we possibly can
mhm.
is important in analyzing our thoughts and asking ourselves, is this fear-based or is this love-based? And why do I feel this way? Why is this an issue? What
Yeah. And
what what's
how can I flip it to see it from a loving perspective?
Mhm.
How can I see this through a new perspective? How can I see this from the other person's perspective?
Yeah, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is always a good way to live, I think. I mean, to be that way, you're going to be more compassionate and understanding.
Well, that's
um,
that's actually what Yeshua meant when he said to turn the other cheek. So it's been one of the great misperceptions is that turn the other cheek means to turn the cheek and let them continue hurting you. What he meant when he said turn the other cheek is to turn and look from the other perspective.
that makes so much more sense. Yeah, they've misinterpreted so many things that he
Hmm.
tried to say and do. It's just really shameful, is what it is, and it's such a touchy subject. People get so easily offended. Um, about the religion. It's like I've always said this before. Everybody knows they've been lied to about everything, but they don't want to admit that they've been lied to in the religions.
Precisely. Yeah, I've noticed that too. That people recognize the deception every place else except for there, and it's prevalent everywhere. It's there too, But I think the reason, and I've known this for years, that accepting the deception within religion is going to be the most difficult part for human beings to grasp, because their soul's eternity is attached to their beliefs. If they
Yeah.
don't believe that, then what? And I think that's the most
Yeah.
terrible.
So, yeah, exactly. It's like, well, um, it's like a crutch that they feel that they have to have.
Right.
Um,
Because
and
it's
it's,
scary to question, what if they're wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I don't believe that anymore? Then what? Then what happens to my soul if I don't believe that?
oh, for sure, especially like if you want to, I don't know if we should go there or not, but the died on the cross kind of thing. And what if that didn't really happen, or what if I have a misconception about that because they didn't tell us the whole truth and nothing but the truth about that whole thing. So that's a very touchy area.
It is a very touchy area, and I don't know if this is the place to go into it, but
Yeah, we don't have to go into it, but um it what the main point that I'm trying to make is that there are misconceptions, just like the one that you pointed out, from what Yeshua's teachings were, and what is a lot. We don't even have the real Bible. All we have is, versions that were created by leaders that were looking out after their own self interests.
well, they had a very specific agenda, so they went looking for texts and stories that would promote their specific agenda. And it's interesting because I've asked Yeshua about things that he taught, and he's like, "I didn't say that. That's not what I said. That's what men who wrote the book said I said, but that's not actually what I said."
Boy, I can't wait till we really find out the truth about all of that. I'm so much looking forward to that.
Yeah. And I don't know what it will take for all of that to begin to be unraveled, because we've been told these beliefs for so long, and human beings have been afraid to even question their beliefs. And one of the
Or you
mantras,
might burn in hell.
one of the mantras I live by is question everything. Question
Mhm.
everything.
Everything.
I don't care what news station it's on. I don't care what community it comes from. I don't care who it's coming from. Question everything. And what's really important for people to understand is the truth is always inside. It's always inside of you. So we can listen to other teachers and other people's perspectives, but ultimately it comes down to self trust. It comes down to your own inner guidance. So I can teach people what my understanding is.
Mhm, mhm.
I'm not here to change people's minds. I'm here to get people to open up their minds and open up their hearts to their own truth, to the divine truth, not what anybody else tells them to believe.
What they believe in their heart.
Right, right. And
That's
if we
where
learn
all
how
our
to
answers
trust
are.
ourselves, yeah.
That's where, yeah. Well, we've been subjected to so much um, self loathing rather than self love that it's had a profound effect on our selves. But it does seem like we're coming out of it. I don't want to, seem, negative or anything like that. But it's like pulling teeth, uh, which is no pleasant task. But getting to know ourselves and love ourselves are a big part of it as well.
It's a huge part of it. That's all. That's it, really. It's honoring the God that exists within every single one of us. Not that we are God, but understand that we are all streams of consciousness of the I am presence inside every one of us. And learning how to love this divine being that's having a human experience. All of our belief systems have taught us to not love ourselves, but we
That's
have
yeah.
we have to get love from someone else. We have to get out of fear of lack, right? That we
Right.
are lacking love, that we are lacking abundance, that we are lacking prosperity, that we are lacking relationships. So it keeps us in fear and lack and desperation. When the truth is, when we learn how to have a loving relationship with ourselves, everything else follows suit. Our external experiences are actually a reflection of our internal experience. So if we want more love and better relationships, we got to come from here first. And we're finally starting to understand that this fear-based reality we've been living has basically broken the hearts of humanity. Our hearts have not been working properly for a very long time. And we are moving into this new earth, love-based, heart-based reality. And so the hearts of human beings are starting to work again.
That's beautiful. The heart has the largest resonance, and a lot of people think it's the brain, but it's not. It's the heart.
Yeah.
And once we get these two working together,
Well, and it's not like that. There's also the
the
gut,
gut,
second
yeah,
mind.
that's
So
another brain. Yeah.
what we have is we have basically three minds. We have the the mental mind, the gut mind, and the heart. What what I've been shown is that this is the in our head is our connection to the masculine aspect of source. Our gut is our connection to the feminine aspect of source, mother God, father God. This heart is our connection to the child, the divine child that each of us are. The
Oh,
light
wow. I
source,
haven't heard that before. That's
right?
interesting.
Mother, father, child. So when we have this beautiful marriage of Father God and Mother God in our heart, this divine child wakes up. That's what Yeshua was trying to explain to people. He embodied the divine father, mother more than anybody else, and he became this Christed child. We all have that inside of us. We've just, this heart has never worked properly, so our intuition and our mental mind have not been working cohesively together. The connection to Father Source and the connection to Mother Source have not come together in this beautiful heart where the divine child exists within every single one of us. It's
Oh,
that
that's
heart
beautiful.
light, that Christed child that is just waiting to be awakened within us. That's the unconditional love that Yeshua carried for all of humanity. We all have that inside of us. And we're starting to get there.
I'm starting to get it back. um, that's that's a wonderful thing. It really is. I don't know how else to say it. But can you imagine a world where everybody's kind and respectful to each other and
I do every day.
and get along? And that's what we want, more and more people to start thinking and imagining that. Because if the human collective ever comes together with thoughts of that nature, what a difference, what a world we'd have.
What a
It'd be
wonderful world we would have.
it would be beautiful. Um,
It would be heaven on earth, is what it would be.
yes, yes. We got to get there.
Really, what we all want.
Yes,
I
it
mean, we
is.
say it all the time. Every year, Christmas, peace on earth, heaven on earth, the beauty pageants. What would you like? Peace on earth. We all want it. We've just been told that it's impossible. And you and
Possible.
I both know that it is possible. We
Yes,
just
it is. We have to believe it. We have to accept it, and we have to um, think
be.
about it and imagine it and see it in the now.
Yeah.
And if you notice, that's one of the things that the media has always done besides lie to us on a regular basis. They don't show us the kinds of things that are uplifting. It's always some kind of trauma or something, some sensationalized uh, dark thing of some sort.
And you know why that is?
Keeps people in fear.
Keeps us in fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why really people need to shut their TV off as much as possible.
Or if
Uh,
you watch TV, watch something that's uplifting. And that's true because they're not telling the truth. They're just telling stories to keep us in fear. The real truth is loving. And but they don't ever show that side of the story. They only show the fear side of the story. They don't show the other side of the story.
Yeah, they never do. So, um, are there different dimensions of consciousness? Would that be a correct way of putting that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you describe that?
Well, dimensions of consciousness aren't someplace else. They're all here, all existing all at the same time. So
Mhm.
dimensions of consciousness are actually where we hold our own frequency.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
So
sure
people
what
feel
was
like,
meant by
oh, I
that.
have to get up and go to 5D. No, you don't go to 5D. You go to 5D here. It's in here.
In your heart.
Yes.
Okay. And that's actually pretty easy by being loving. That's all it really takes.
That's all it is. Listen,
um,
the more you
wow.
let go of the layers of fear, the more you come home to that higher frequency within ourselves. That's all it is. It's all here. It's not like we're going to get up and go to a different planet. It's about creating it here within ourselves. And when enough of us hold that reality within ourselves, it begins to physically manifest because it must. Because
Mhm.
it's a reflection of the vibration that we hold within ourselves collectively.
Okay. So, there are people out there that are saying things like, well, we're going to get to a civil war, or there's going to be like a revolutionary war, or any things of that nature. And just to even think that way is fear-based and negative.
Correct. They're entertaining it, and simply by talking about it and visualizing, they're actually creating it. We have to stop talking about that. We have to stop energizing the dissension reality. The reason they put all that stuff on television is because the controllers, if you will, know that when the collective envisions something, we create it. That's how powerful we are. We are creators. We create with our words, we create with our visions, we create with our conversations. So we need to have better conversations and better visions and stop energizing and entertaining the dissension reality.
It doesn't help one single bit.
If it actually fuels it, it actually energizes, it actually makes it manifest. Now, there are two different realities that are coexisting right now, and we get to choose which one of those we will participate in. The more of us who choose the love-based reality, the sooner that old reality will start to fizzle out and disappear. Right now, they're being created side by side. And where we put our energy determines which direction we go. So we need to all stop focusing on all the negative. And it's not to ignore that it's there, right? Because it's important to understand, okay, I see that over there. I recognize this playing out, and I'm going to energize something better. I'm going to take my mental focus and my vision and my physical energy, and I'm going to put it into the world I want to be a part of creating,
Mhm.
and refuse to energize this world over here. Because when we put our energy into it, we are actually helping to create it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. It does. Um, so people need to really think seriously about the thoughts in their head and what they're projecting by those thoughts, giving energy to negative thinking. And I say that, and people get mad at me sometimes. I'm talking about family members, they get mad at me when I say that, but it's true. And um,
Well, I
I
think
just
that
can't say this.
yeah, it isn't like the positive mental thinking, right?
Mhm.
Which on its surface it's not that effective. If it's like, oh, focus on the positive, but you're actually feeling all this negative stuff, it's like a false positive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the easiest
Okay.
the best and easiest way to shift our resonance is to go into gratitude. That works faster than anything else.
Yeah, love and gratitude creates the most beautiful crystals frozen in water. Um, just the words love and gratitude.
Right.
Dr. Emoto's work proved that. And since we are at least 70% water, how we think is going to affect our entire being.
Absolutely. So we need to learn how to be impeccable with our thoughts, impeccable with our words, impeccable with our feelings, impeccable with our energy, impeccable with our time, impeccable with our money. And that's really difficult to get to that because humanity's never had to do that before. But this is about being completely conscious and aware of how we move through our life in all things. And it takes work to start that process. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it does start to filter out in the relationships around us. It just does. If you're a positive, grateful person, it floods out from your resonance. It actually floods out of your heart into the world around you. And it does affect people. Being an example of what's possible. We don't have to tell anybody else what to think or tell anybody else what to do. All we need to do is be an example of what's possible for ourselves.
That's so true. That's so true. Because it starts with us first.
Right.
And then it moves out to those that are around you. Then it moves out to your community. Then it moves out to your city. Then it moves out to your state. Then it moves. I mean, we can have a profound effect just by making some of those changes in ourselves.
That's right.
It's hard for people to believe that because I know I even thought, what? When I first heard it many years ago.
I have seen entire relationships and families be completely transformed by one person doing their spiritual work.
Wow.
Yeah.
And let's explain exactly what spiritual work is. So we make it real, even though we got over it. It doesn't hurt to say things more than once.
Well, it's basically, yeah. So it's your shadow processing, being willing to look at all of the parts inside of us that we've had resentment toward. So for me, that's what shadow processing really is where inside of myself do I hold resentment and judgment and blame and resentment and againstness toward myself? That that causes our own suffering. And because we have suffering within ourselves, then we project that suffering out into the world around us. It's always about us, not in a selfish way, of course, but understand every experience we have in our reality is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. So it's about going inside and taking a look at all the places within us that we have always considered to be unlovable, and learning how to love ourselves, learning how to accept bring back all those broken pieces back into the whole of who we are, and love them up, and give them a new nickname, give them a new job. It's like, so there was a part of me because I started giving my personality stuff different names. There was a part of me I called Scaredy Cat, right? I didn't like Scaredy Cat. What? And so Scaredy Cat would rear her ugly head once in a while to remind me that, like, this is a personality egoic thing. So I gave her a new title.
What's
I love of Mother Lioness.
Well, Mother Lioness. Whoa.
So, like, I'm a mom and I'm a lioness comes out. So Scaredy Cat's not a little Scaredy Cat anymore. She's like, ooh, I got a new job. I'm courageous and I'm brave. And so when we hold againstness toward any aspect of ourselves, that's also going to create a shadow within ourselves. Even the ego. So I hear people say, well, ego, blah, blah, blah. The ego's not a bad guy. The ego is a part of us. It exists for self-preservation. When we learn how to accept our ego and have our ego feel safe with us, it won't try to mess with us anymore because it feels safe. It knows it's secure. It's not in self-preservation mode anymore.
Yeah, our ego is a necessary part of us. It's just that somehow, in some ways, it can be used against us if we don't.
Precisely. So there are beings who learned how to use fear as a means of control. So fear exists for self-preservation, right? That lion might come and get me kind of thing. So the ego is there for self-preservation, and it kicks in right. My understanding is it kicks in right around 11. And
oh, really?
When kids no longer need their parents to look after them and they start learning how to look after themselves. So if you look at kids before 11, they're fearless. Oh, look at them go down this slide and do crazy things. And then self-preservation kicks in, right? And that's when they start noticing how other kids, what were the other kids going to say? What, right. So there's all that. But so for me, that the ego is like a little boy. It's a little, that's because it is here in the masculine brain, the masculine side of our mind, that it's just a little boy that's trying to protect us. If we let it know that it's protected, that we, the warrior that's inside of us, has it, then it stops rearing its head anymore. It's kind of like, well, I'm not afraid anymore because I know I'm safe with you. It knows that the divine inspiration part of us has the steering wheel, and it doesn't have to be afraid anymore.
That's beautiful. That is, because that is an issue for a lot of people, and knowing how to calm it down, and knowing that it is a necessary part of our being as well.
Yeah,
It
maybe
just
in any aspect, if we hold any aspect of ourselves in against us, it's going to prevent us from finding that peace within ourselves. So we have to make peace with the ego as well.
that makes a lot of sense. What about how a lot of people ask me, how do you know your soul purpose? Do you have any answers for that? I mean, everybody's different, so everybody,
Yeah,
you know.
that's difficult because for me, it came in and it was like a flood. It's like a faucet got turned on and it just flooded.
Hmm.
So, and here's something too. And I actually do need to be going pretty soon because I have another call to go into. But
Okay.
what I started to understand about 10 years ago when I discovered who I am
Hmm.
is that we have a life purpose and then we have a higher purpose if we're willing to accept it. That higher purpose is a really, really big stretch for people. It's basically a soul agreement that we have with our higher selves that we don't necessarily have to. So we have a contract with our higher selves that when we get to this point, I'm going to take on this bigger role. It's usually really big and can be quite scary. So not everybody's really ready to go to that higher purpose.
Hmm.
And that's not necessarily the case because I've seen the soul's purpose for some people that come to me and ask me what their purpose is, and I've seen some really, really cool things for people. So it
Hmm.
isn't always a big scary thing, but it does require us to step into the unknown and do something we hadn't even thought to do before.
Hmm.
Because once we come up out of that matrix and we pop up into that 4D, that we no longer, where the life purpose was before was just to kind of exist. Now when you step up into that and then you have a higher purpose, it's okay, well, what now? Now that I'm not just existing to pay the bills, now what? And it's usually something really extraordinary that you might not have ever thought of before.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I could
Well,
tell you.
a lot of times it actually a lot of times, one of the things I share with people, a lot of times if you go all the way back to when you were like 2 or 3 years old, 4 years old, it's there. It's back there where when you came in with your gifts, your propensities, your personality, all that came with you when you were born.
Mhm.
And our education systems and our parents and our religions and all of that told us we should be someone else. There's that should
Yeah.
again.
Should,
Going
should, should.
all the way
Yeah.
back when you were little and going, ooh, when I was really small, what did I love? What was I really good at? Chances are your higher purpose is hidden in there somewhere. We were just told that you couldn't make money at it, or it wasn't sensible, or it was ridiculous.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So if
Yeah.
we go back there, so for me, one of the things I was told is that I talk too much. Nobody wanted to hear what I have to say. And I go back, I'm like, but that was who I was naturally.
Uh-huh.
But as a girl, I wasn't allowed to have an opinion and I wasn't allowed to speak.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
So I forgot.
Kids are meant to be quiet. That's what I was told. Yeah. Seen and not heard.
And so for me, it was even worse because I grew up in this. I think I told you I grew up in this polygamist fundamentalist cult where girls we were not allowed to say anything. Girls were to be kept sweet. So
I'll be so glad when all of that is, leveled out and made to be more fair and true to reality. That's another area that religion hit really hard because they're really hard on women in all religions. And that's not normal, and that's not the way the creator of our souls ever meant it to be, because we've had incarnations where we were different sexes too. So
absolutely.
it makes absolutely no sense at all. But anyway,
it's about fear and control, and that's changing. We're going to dismantle all of it and restore the way things were always intended to be.
Yes, this false reality is going to be recreated into the reality that it was always meant to be.
Absolutely.
And we are here to get the word out to help make that happen. And we need everyone on board and stop complying with things that interfere with your freedom, your personal freedoms. It's taking a very high toll on everyone. So, and I know you have to go. So if you have any last final words,
last final words. Well, they can find me at VictoriaReynolds.com. Where to find me, VictoriaReynolds.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please.
And my show is Fearless and Free TV. That's on YouTube. And
all of this will be in the description of the show. So you'll be able to find Victoria in the description. So that information will be there.
I do want to share one thing really quick. So I teach a class every quarter, basically. And the next class is starting up in June. It's called the Transcendence Process, where I actually teach people the process of going up that spiritual spiral. So I have a couple of weeks left in the current class, and then the next class starts up in June. So the class is open for registration right now if anybody's interested in that.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time and your energy and for the wonderful work that you're doing on the planet, because it is making a difference. And I'm always delighted to have you on my show. And thank you.
Oh, thank you. And next one's on me. You're going to be on my show.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. And you will be able to find Victoria's information in the description of this video when the replays are available. And we'll see you again soon. And thank you for listening. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll stand. We'll stand. We will stand. Standing tall and standing strong. Defiant and looking on. No way down from our past we climb. We'll push on while there's still time. Watch our backs through the night.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to remind everyone this is listener supported show. So if you can help in any way, it is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, and see you again soon. And we will. I did try to have a show with Drake, but his computers got hacked, and he is getting them fixed. So until that happens, we can't have a show. But anyway, I have some other very interesting guests coming up. So please stay tuned. Thank you.